Hi, I'm Oliver. Welcome to today's book discussion. So the book I chose today was once again a book that I picked up without knowing much about the book itself. I have one of my coworkers is a student in literature. So what better way to inquire about suggestions about what to read than to ask someone who studying literature. I mean, come on. And he suggested this book. So his name is Martin. I'll leave his Twitter account in the description box below. You can go follow him or asking questions or suggestions. He's always open, and he knows that I'm going to be mentioning him here, so feel free to go and harass him. I asked him for many suggestions. One of the suggestions that I asked him for was if he knew of any graphic novels. I mean, because other than Watchmen, I hadn't read any other graphic novel. I'm interested in reading Sandman, but it's super expensive. And, I've read mangas and cartoon strips and stuff like that, but I was looking for a graphic novel, and he suggested Fun Home, a family tragicomic by Alison Bechdel. So you might know her. She runs a website called Dykes to Watch Out For. So you can also check her out. I'm going to leave the website in the description box below. And that's about it. That's the only thing I knew. I knew that it was a graphic novel and that Martin recommended it. That's it. That's the only reason why I picked it up. So, I check on Chapters website. They have it. I have a Chapters 2 blocks away from work. So during my break, I go and run there. And I look in the graphic novel and it's not there. It's not there. Because even though it's a graphic novel, it's considered to be an autobiography. So it's in the biography section. So if you go to, I don't know about Barnes and Nobles and all of those other book chains, but if you're going to Chapters or Indigo in Canada, look for it in the biography section. And, once I picked it up, I saw the headline that says Time Magazine #1 Book of the Year and the National Book Critics Circle Award finalist. And then there's a quote from Entertainment Weekly, and then it won a ton of prizes, and it was on a ton of national bestsellers, and it was on a lot of lists of best book of the year. So I was like, okay, how come I did not know about this book? I don't know. But clearly, I had to read it. So I picked it up. Now, so it's a biography, and it's about a young woman, and it's mainly about a woman and her relationship to her father. It takes place in a small town in the United States, and her father, the family business is a funeral parlor, and so they run a funeral parlor, and the father seems to be, and that seems is interested, in renovating old houses and gardening and architectures and books and literature. And then, she grows up, and as it turns out, she's a lesbian, and so we see her journey in childhood, teenagehood, college studies, and the first girlfriend, the girlfriend coming home, and then eventually the father dies in a car accident. And there's also like a subtext that runs questioning whether or not the accident was voluntary or not, meaning did he throw himself in front of the car, or did the car hit him without him knowing it? Because it turns out that the father was a repressed homosexual, or had a homosexual desire that he repressed. Whether or not he was homosexual or bisexual, it's not made clear. So there's a lot of the book is about, about that tension field, because she seeks the approval of her father. Her father seems to be controlling. She develops OCD. She's insecure. And then when she gets to college, her love of books sort of brings her closer to her father, but not that close. So it's a great study in family dynamic. We clearly see that, you know, everybody is in its own little world. She has also two brothers, and sort of each of the five people, the mother, the father, the two brothers, and her, sort of live their own lives, and they sort of basically eat together for dinner, and that's about it. So it reminded me somehow or somewhat of, if you watch, I know they're books, but I haven't read the book, but I watched the movie Little Children and Revolutionary Road, both with Kate Winslet, but it's one of those suburban story where nothing is said, everything sort of looks fine on the surface, but there's tons of things bubbling under the surface. So it's nice for that. It's a nice study in family dynamics and in small town dynamics, and nice coming out story, though I don't know what's going on with me. I read Mike Aldo recently, I read Andy Cohen, so there's this big queer, well, I seem to be reading queer literature in the past few weeks, and they all involve coming out and stuff like that. And it's personally not a topic that I enjoy reading about. But I mean, it's fine in here. So that's the story. I mean, there's not more to say about the story itself. Pick it up, read it. I mean, it's a graphic novel. I mean, it reads very quickly. The drawings are very, very nice. It's not in color, but it's in that different shades of green and black. And like a little bit like the cover. So it's nice. Now, here are my couple of pet peeves about the graphic novel. There is not a lot of dialogue. Let me just see here. Oh, here we go. You see this page? I don't know if you don't need to see anything or everything, but there's always all of this description of what's happening in the scene with a little bit of the inner thought, but then there's only this much of dialogue. If you don't see the bubble, it just says what. And then there's more inner dialogue, description of the scene, description of the scene, description of the scene. Through all of this, everything is description of the scene except for Dad, what? I need a check. What for? Some new mad book that costs $3.70. Write it out and I'll sign it. That's it. Otherwise, it's all about scene description. So I was reading it and I was thinking, yes, it's a graphic novel, but it doesn't feel that much like it doesn't feel graphic novel-y enough for me, because it's basically text with an illustration. You know what I mean? Am I making myself clear here? It's more like text with illustration. But it's not, it's a little pet peeve. It doesn't change the experience, that doesn't change the quality of the writing, doesn't change the experience of the book. I just wonder, at some points, why make it a graphic novel? Yeah. But it doesn't change the story. The other thing is, she takes literature classes. Her father is an English teacher and he reads a lot. Oh my lord! The dozens of literature references made throughout that book, I mean, it's unbelievable. And they're always reading a book, always. He's reading Zelda by Nancy Milford. Who's that? What's that book? I don't know what that book is. And I often wondered, while reading the book, would I enjoy it more if I had a greater or bigger literature culture? Is that how you would say it? But if I had a greater knowledge of literature in general, would I enjoy this book more? The author draws a lot of parallel between her story and her father's, her life and her father's life. Saying, her father probably loved Fitzgerald, here's how his life is. I was reading the Odyssey, and here's what happens in my life. So she keeps drawing parallel. Granted, she explains the parallel clearly when it needs to be explained. So for example, she'll say, here's what happened in the Odyssey, and look what's happening in my life. You can clearly see the mirror. But some other time, as for example, the mention that I just said about Zelda and Milford, written by Milford, so Zelda by Nancy Milford, there's no explanation. But I wondered, is there a parallel to that scene taking place in those pages if I were to read Zelda? So, yeah, it made me feel incompetent or not knowledge, like I didn't have any knowledge of literature. So yeah, basically I know nothing. You know, it's like, did you watch The Gilmore Girls? Did you notice how many freaking books Rory Gilmore read? Yeah, that's how it felt. I was like, wow, I know nothing. The wealth of books available is too great. Is that a complaint? There's too many books in the history of books. Anyway, so there you go. But otherwise, I mean, yeah, so those two are pet peeves or questions that I had or thoughts that went through my mind while reading the book. But I still recommend that you pick it up. It's not that expensive. It was 19 bucks in Canada. It took me, 2 days to read it while on the metro, during lunch, a little bit at night. So it reads quickly, and she was able to make us feel as if we were in that family, as if we were there, as if we were in that suburb in the 70s, 80s in the United States. She was able to achieve that, which is great. So there you go, pick it up. Fun Home, a tragicomedy by Alison Bechdel. I recommend it. So did you read it? What did you think of the book? Is there another graphic novel that I should check out? So leave your comments, suggestions in the description box below, or on my Twitter, or on my Facebook page. At the end of each month, I just pick up my favorite comments, and I'm gonna expand on them even further than I will once I respond to you on the internet. So there you go. Until next time, take care. Bye.